Hope today finds you well. When I was driving to work this morning, I put on 1979's Overkill, which happened to be Motörhead's sophomore effort. I was very impressed with the album, and when I was driving, I had the feeling that I really wanted to get home and talk about it. However, it's one of the many Motörhead CDs I don't actually have on, well, CD. I opted to talk about their 1986 album, Orgasmatron. And this is definitely one of my favorites from them, probably my second or third favorite. And the reason that I wanted to talk about Overkill so much, which I actually ordered off Amazon just a few minutes ago, because I definitely do want to talk about it. Yeah, just keep the footage going. One of the reasons that I really wanted to talk about Overkill was because it combines many styles of rock and roll that I'm very fond of. You know, there's a lot of boogie rock in there, and there's, you know, a lot of that, you know, 50s sort of scuzzy kind of atomic rock and roll that they're known for. You know, that's their brand, and they combine that really with a lot of early styles of heavy metal that I really enjoy. You know, like a lot of proto speed metal that bands like, you know, Saxon were, you know, doing around that time, and you know, Iron Maiden was just getting started. Bands like that, you know, like a lot of British bands, you know that kind of style they were doing. And so many awesome songs in that one, but I don't have it on CD yet, so I'm going to save a lot of my thoughts for it until then. So I'm really going to hone in like on Orgasmatron and talk about this one for a little bit. Going back in time a little bit to 1983, Motörhead just finished up the Another Perfect Tour, which I'm sure that's what they dubbed it. They'd be kind of stupid for not dubbing it the Another Perfect Tour, because they were touring for the Another Perfect Day album from 1983, which was their first with Brian Robertson of Thin Lizzy fame. Now, at the tail end of this tour, I do believe it was 1983, maybe 1984, Brian Robertson left the band and took Phil "Filthy Animal" Taylor with him. So at the end of 1983 and the beginning of 1984, Motörhead was composed of just Lemmy Kilmister, and what he opted to do was hire two virtually unknown guitarists in Wurzel and Phil Campbell, and he hired the seasoned Pete Gill. Now, to a lot of you watching that video, Pete Gill's name is going to sound very familiar because he actually played with Saxon from 1977 to 1981. He played on 4 of their albums: the Saxon debut from 1979, Wheels of Steel and Strong Arm of the Law, both from 1980, and well, one of my absolute favorites from Saxon, Denim and Leather, in 1981. He left after 1981, and Power and the Glory from 1983 was the first album they did without Pete Gill. I'm not too sure what he did in his time from Saxon to Motörhead, but by 1984 he did end up in the band. Now Motörhead was always a band that was very adamant about not making music for the fans. However, they did really well by us in 1984 by releasing the No Remorse compilation, which was one of the first. They did really good by us in 1984 by releasing the No Remorse compilation, which debuted the new lineup. Now, in total, you know, one of the only things that makes like the No Remorse compilation so attractive, you know, like to diehards and newcomers alike, is that it features 24 tracks, and 10 of those tracks you can't normally find on the albums. As the 4 originals, Killed by Death, Locomotive, Snaggletooth, and Like a Nightmare, and there's supposed live versions of Leaving Here and Too Late, Too Late, and also featured on that compilation are collaborations with Girl School, which they titled Head Girl. If I'm not mistaken, that's all that the No Remorse compilation covers. I do believe that's a good bit of it. Now, earlier in 1984, there was one more like official release before No Remorse was released, and that was the Killed by Death single. But I think that's really awesome that they put out the No Remorse compilation instead of imposing a full-length, imposing a full-length album on the fans, you know, just right off the bat. So in 1986, they recorded the album titled Orgasmatron, and wow. I really like this album for a number of reasons. I think I was talking with a fellow Motörhead banger online about this album, and he put it perfectly when he said, it's not really everybody's poison, is how he put it. And I really like that, because it's a very unique album, and there are many people out there who are far too critical of this album because of the production and the amount of reverb that they put into Lemmy's voice. But like in 1986, this was a rallying call to Motorhead bangers everywhere. Well, like the No Remorse compilation was easy to digest. This was something that, fans really had to put a lot of time into knocking back. And I want to read off, the opening lyrics, because it really just, the opening lyrics of this album really puts you, there with the band, and it really shows, they meant business in 1986. And like the context of 1986, that year, I can just go on and on about all the amazing albums that were released in that year, Peace Sells, and really hope I can name more off the top of my head than Peace Sells. There's Peace Sells, Game Over, many, many albums were released in that year. Yeah. So the opening lines of Orgasmatron, the rallying call for Motorhead bangers everywhere. Stone-faced dog, swirling fog, gates open on the dark, dark night. Standing stone, skull and bone, dead witness to an unseen fight. By far the most badass opening lines of any Motorhead album that were ever released. This is only paralleled by the Terminal Show from Inferno in 2004, which starts off with, the golden night creature sits back on his throne, gazes at us in despair. 600 guests, humanity's best. Now that's some heavy shit. So Orgasmatron from 1986. I really like how this album plays out, because some of it is really uplifting, but then there's, like the more like downtrodden stuff, and it really is just a grimy, filthy, just slab of unrelenting speed metal, and that's why I love it. And it really harkens back to, like 1980, like the style that they finally got like an Ace of Spades after, dabbling around in, some hard rock and roll. They, they finally dug deep and put out like a bona fide speed metal album. And I think that Orgasmatron, really does throw back to that, because this can be classified as a speed metal album or a thrash metal album in my own opinion, and that of my colleagues. And like in 1986, that was a cornerstone year for thrash metal. There were releases from 3 members of the Big Four. Peace Sells by Megadeth, Master of Puppets, an album I'm not a very big fan of, by Metallica, and Rain and Blood by Slayer, another album I'm not a very big fan of. And of course, as I mentioned before, there was Game Over. You had... Yeah, give me a second. I know more albums from 1986. Somewhere in Time, Iron Maiden, and many other albums. Of course, that's not a thrash metal album, but a very cornerstone year for thrash metal, and like, so having this band Motorhead, one of the bands that pioneered that style of heavy metal, to have them release just one album to kind of like top them all, to me that's insane, because like they pioneered this style, and then like in 1986, 9 years after they were formed, they said, hey, we did this first, we're going to do it again better than everybody else. And I kind of feel the same feeling towards Painkiller from Judas Priest in 1990. They took a look around at what was going on, the state of heavy metal in 1990, and said, hey, look, the style is great, we pioneered it, we're going to do it better than everybody else. And they did. So my top 10 heavy metal albums of all time, Painkiller is. And but yeah, going back to Orgasmatron, I really like the flow of this album. Death's Forever is a great opener in my opinion, and going into Nothing Up My Sleeve, which that's a Motorhead classic in its own right, and really, like, Orgasmatron is just filled with so many classic songs that Motorhead bangers around the world love. Really ends on a high note with Orgasmatron. It kind of features like that psychedelic kind of space rock, like progressive feel that they really got with both On Parole and the debut Motorhead, 1979 and 1977 respectively. And as I said, this is just a really grimy album. I love the production, and it's so strange because a lot of fans and Lemmy himself are very critical of the production. I'm not too sure who produced this. I know a lot of things, folks. I'm very particular about my information, but I can't know it all. But it was a producer, if I'm getting the story right, it was a producer that had a budding interest in hip-hop music, and he tried to translate some of his own interest in hip-hop music to a Motorhead album, which in hindsight is not a very good idea, but think, you know, like the production job here is really, really well done. It's really bassy. And as I said, there's a lot of reverb in like Lemmy's voice, and you know, this could be considered a complaint. Sometimes when these guys, you know, are going at it, you know, just insanely fast, and like I want to point to Mean Machine here because this happens in Mean Machine. All the sounds, you know, the drums and the bass and the guitar and the vocals kind of blend together, and the guitars kind of get lost in the mix. And I think definitely in Mean Machine, I think it's right after the solo, you know, where they go back into that opening riff. You can really hear the guitar just kind of trail off. I don't know where the hell it goes, but they managed to find it at the end of the song, at least. Want to note real quick, if you look at the back of this, you see that's the cover for the Deaf Forever single that was released after this album was released. And that's really cool because it has the bonus tracks on here for the Deaf Forever single. Well, not the bonus track for the Deaf Forever single. It contains like the Deaf Forever single as bonus tracks. So you have On the Road, which is an early version of Built for Speed, and to my knowledge, I'd like for somebody to prove me wrong, there's not a studio version of On the Road that exists. So that's really cool to have here. And you also have a live version of Steal Your Face, which was from the No Remorse compilation. And you also have like an alternative version of The Claw, which is track 4 on this album. And the only thing that's different about the alternative version of Claw is that it sounds more like a demo, and I think the synthetic kind of, you know, backing vocals that they have, you know, the samples that they use throughout the Claw aren't present in the alternative version, which might, you know, fit people, which, you know, like some fans of Motörhead might like that, but I still like to listen to the original. I don't listen to the alternative version too much, but yeah, I like Orgasmatron in 1986, just one of the most furious slabs of heavy metal I've ever heard. You know, just I can just name off all these tracks and go just, you know, classic, that's an essential, that's a raging one, and just, God, like when I hear like the opening riff of Riding with the Driver, I mean, that's bona fide classic Motörhead. I don't think, you know, to have opening riffs like that in like a Motörhead song, you know, like, you know, song's gonna be badass. Riding with the Driver is a badass track, and yeah, Dr. Rock, that was a favorite opener of theirs, you know, for a long time, and I really wish that they would play more stuff off this album, you know, live later on, because, you know, like they played a lot of it live to start with, but a lot of this stuff did end up, you know, being dropped from the set list, with the exception of Deaf Forever would be played for a little bit, So Nothing Up My Sleeve, Dr. Rock, and Orgasmatron would also be brought back. I think, yeah, most notably for their 25th anniversary tour and for their 40th anniversary tour, they brought back the title cut from this album, which is really cool to hear that song live. I think it works best live because they're really able to add a lot of punch to it. And you know, like with this album, even the studio version of the title track really does, you know, have like that psychedelic kind of trudging feel to it, which is so awesome. You know, yeah, what's that line? It's yeah, the one about, you know, our bones filling his palaces and our eyes stunned his crown. That's just a great Motörhead line. I'm gonna find that real quick. So yeah, like the last 4 lines of this song, I just love. I hold a banner drenched in blood. I urge you to be brave. I lead you to your destiny. I lead you to your grave. Your bones will fill my palaces. Your eyes will stud my crown. For I am Mars, the god of war, and I will cut you down. For me, that's just one of those classic, quintessential Motörhead lines. It really just gives you a whole idea for how the album plays out. And it really is just, you know, like a methamphetamine fueled, you know, speed metal cock rocket fest, which is what I'd call Orgasmatron. I mean, like the entire affair is just, you know, it's like enough to give those who don't prepare properly a brain hemorrhage. You know, like I really do believe. And but this is one of those ones that I can just sing along with, you know, the entire way through, which I can't say that for every Motörhead album, you know, because there's certain songs, you know, maybe like 1 or 2 here that I don't like, but I really do just, every track here can just stand so well on its own and also works so well in the context of the album. And yeah, I can't tell you, just like popping this in the CD player and like hearing Deaf Forever, like in 1986, I don't know what I would have done if I was a Motörhead fan. I mean, I probably would have gone insane because just, you know, like that opening, you know, like that mid-tempo, you know, march that goes on is just insane in Death Forever. But there's so many classics on this album, as I said. Really need to check this one out if you haven't. As far as where to start with Motörhead, I definitely wouldn't start with this one because this isn't really like an album that divides the fan base, but it's also one that too many fans are critical of, in my opinion. And if you want a good place to start, I would definitely say Overkill. You could start with Ace of Spades. Motorizer from 2008 is another really good choice. We Are Motörhead 2 from the year 2000 is a really good place to start because it was like a declaration of rights for the band. But yeah, definitely would not recommend starting with Orgasmatron. However, this is an excellent Motörhead album. One of my favorites. You know, I think it is actually my second favorite, Beyond Inferno. But yep, that's a few words that I had for you guys about the Orgasmatron album. Many of you online know me as James, and those in real life may know me as Dylan. But I'm glad that I was able to talk for a brief moment about an album that means a lot to me. And, one thing that I do highly regret about Motörhead was I never got to tell Lemmy himself how much his music meant to me. And so, you know, doing videos like this, you know, kind of helps to you know, really keep the band alive, you know, keep the spirit of the band alive. So, anyway, so yeah, guys, that's it for today. I'll definitely be doing more of these. I definitely want to hit like at least 1916 next time, and when Overkill gets in, I'll definitely go over that album because there's at least 2 or 3 lines on Overkill, which this isn't Overkill, but there's at least 2 or 3 lines on Overkill that mean a lot to me, and I think, you know, they're some of the best lines Motörhead perhaps they've ever written. I think the songwriting on both Overkill and 1916 were Motörhead at their best. So that's that. Anyway, see you guys later.